Hi, good morning. How's everybody today? First, before I start, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please comment below. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if there's anything you'd like me to talk about. And how everybody is. Merry Christmas. Hope everybody's had a lovely Christmas. And Happy New Year if I don't speak to you before then. Just turn my camera up. Right, so today I wanted to actually talk about victim blaming and victim shaming in abuse. Quite often victims will be too scared to come forward to disclose abuse, obviously because of retaliation, because of being not believed, because of being blamed for what's happening. Often abusers will gaslight them. They will deflect the abuse onto them, they will provoke them and cause a reaction, and then they will say, see, you're crazy, I told you you're crazy, or they'll show other people, look, she's unstable, she's crazy, he's crazy, and blame the victims for whatever's happening. And often abusers are very manipulative in the sense that they would have planned it all, they would have staged it all to make it look like, there's nothing, they've got no part to play in this, they haven't done anything wrong, they're just, innocent, genuine people who just want the best for everybody, and none of what the victim is disclosing could possibly be true. Which is what I found when I reported my mother to child services when I was 16 years old for child abuse, because she was physically beating and physically hurting us all. And yet, as soon as I reported to her, she then went and had me admitted to a psychiatric unit to confirm that I was crazy and I didn't know what I was talking about. So she managed to get the allegations dropped. So that's the kind of thing that the abusers will do. I mean, they will go to extreme lengths at times. There are sort of stories where you hear about victims going missing, victims getting hurt, victims, and worse, disappearing and things. So you just never know with abusers what they're capable of. But I do find, like, from first-hand experience and things, that, it is really difficult to get your story across. It's really difficult to get people to believe you. It's quite often people just assume that you're crazy. They just assume that you're delusional, or that you're attention-seeking, or that you're exaggerating, or you've misunderstood a situation or misjudged a situation. Perhaps somebody didn't say it in the way that you thought, somebody didn't do it in the way you thought, that you're jumping to assumptions. And it, like, victim shaming and victim blaming is, I think, one of the worst things when a victim has finally plucked up the courage to disclose abuse. It would have taken them months, possibly years sometimes, to drum up the courage to finally have that tiny bit of, courage and the tiny bit of resilience to say, right, that this is enough and I need to do something about it and I need to go and report it. So it takes a lot from a victim to go and report abuse. Quite often, they would have left it for weeks and weeks, months, sometimes years before they disclose any abuse. So for when they do then go to report it or disclose it, the reaction of the person that they are reporting it to or disclosing it to makes such a huge difference as to what's going to happen next. Because obviously when a victim is shut down and immediately told to shut up, immediately told that, it can't be true, that they're making it up, they must have got it wrong, it will then cause them to step back and to take a few steps back and say, well, they haven't believed me, there's no point going on about it, no one's going to believe me, like, if you don't have proof of what's happened as well, it becomes very difficult then. And that will actually is very detrimental in a sense, because that will then cause that victim not to want to report in future. So if something worse happens to them, they may not then report it, because they will feel that, well, no one believed me in the first place. If I bring it up again, they'll just say I'm just attention seeking, or I'm just making things up, or I'm just wanting to cause problems. So they then will not report abuse in future, which obviously, as you can imagine, like, there are extreme cases where people are killed, beaten, raped, whatever, but that that person then may not report it again. Also, comments like like, are you sure that happened? Are you sure that's what they said? Are you sure that's how it happened? Sort of, constantly, like, it's almost like gaslighting you, because you've come with your truth, you've come to tell a person that you trust, or someone in power, or someone who has the ability to do something about this, and you've told them, look, this has happened to me. And then, you are automatically, you face this barrage of questions as to, well, perhaps it didn't happen that way, perhaps they didn't intend it that way, especially depending on who the abuser is. Quite often the abusers will be people that other people trust, other people see in a positive role, if it's a parent, if it's your partner, whoever it is, normally they would have staged it for other people to think that they're amazing, you know, that they're really good, gentle, caring, kind people, honest people, that there's no way that they would do anything like that. So when you go to disclose about them, the abuse, nobody will believe you because their own preconception of that person is completely different, and it doesn't fit the narrative that they already have in their head for that person and what they've seen and what they've experienced from that person. So there's, you know, they just won't accept it. They just won't even give it the benefit of the doubt, or they wouldn't take what you're saying at face value because it doesn't fit their narrative or that person. And then, you know, there are people who get outright out of the way to try and stop you from reporting it or going further, or to try and, you know, intimidate and bully you into backing down, or pressure you into backing down, or try and sort of manipulate you into backing down. So trying to persuade you that that's not the best option to do, is to actually go and report it through the official channels. Let's do it unofficially. Let's try and sort it out ourselves, or, you know, we'll just have a word with the abuser and they'll stop. You know, they're not going to do it again. Now they know that we know about it, they're not going to do it again. We'll make sure they don't do it again. These kind of things. So you know, the people we disclose to makes such a huge difference as to how things pan out, whether abusers are brought to justice, whether abusers are held accountable for their abuse. You know, and I often think that with regards to abuse where there's been, you know, like sexual abuse or so on, that if for example, like it's somewhere in the workplace and someone has come forward and they've reported abuse in the workplace, the easiest thing for that person is actually to leave that job and to go, because it's so much easier. You just go and find yourself a job and you leave. You do your notice period and you leave. And yet, in order to actually report abuse in the workplace, takes so much guts and resilience, you know, to be able to do it. And not everyone can do it. It will take a strong person to be able to actually do it. So when they're excuse me, I had a bit of a sore throat. Talking with a sore throat isn't the best thing. Excuse me about that. Oh, I'm not doing very well. I'll just wrap it up so I don't keep coughing in your in the video. Yeah, so reporting abuse in the workplace is a very difficult thing to do, you know, and it will take a lot of courage and strength of character to be able to actually do it. Because if you think about it, people's employment is so important to them, you know, like people's bills, people's mortgage, people's, you know, livelihoods attached to that employment. You know, especially at the moment where we're in the middle of a global pandemic, you know, we're about to go into lockdown possibly, you know, trying to find another job in this kind of situation would be very, very difficult for people. And especially someone who isn't paid an awful lot, you know, who's working, say, part-time, or single mum, who's not paid a lot, you know, their employment is so important to them. And yeah, you know, abusers and their monkeys and the enablers of abuse think it, you know, it must be something that they have taken really lightly, you know, that it's just a bit of fun, like they've got nothing going on in their life, they just want a bit of entertainment, they want a bit of fun, they want to cause a bit of problems, maybe they don't like the people they're reporting, maybe there's, you know, some issue there that they don't like the people they're reporting, or perhaps they like the people they were reporting, but the people rejected them, so they're just getting their own back, you know, they're just getting revenge on that person. What else do people come up with? It'd be like, oh yeah, so are you planning to leave then? You know, is this just a ploy just before you leave that you want to cause some problems, you want to stir up some, you know, some problems for everybody, so you just go and report? You know, I'm sure these things do happen. I'm sure there are, you know, you hear about rapes and where people have made false allegations against people, you know, to get them into trouble and things like that. So it does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. What I'm saying is this culture of victim blaming and victim shaming needs to stop. When an abuse victim has come forward and has reported abuse, and they've been strong enough and, you know, resilient enough and determined enough, you know, to put all their fears aside, because it's not an easy thing, you know, when you've been abused, it's not easy. You are struggling, you are fighting depression and anxiety and PTSD and so many other things. So despite that, to be able to then pluck up the courage to go and report an abuser, you know, it deserves a medal, if anything. And yet, you know, the amount of opposition that they face then afterwards because of that disclosure, you know, your immediate supervisor, your manager, your boss, you know, they can then look at them at a negative light. They might blame them for causing trouble. You know, obviously they could face reprimand because of it, if it's happened under their watch. So as a result, they will then pass that anger and frustration on to their employees. So it just becomes such an unpleasant environment to have to work in. I think a lot of victims will then end up leaving as a result. It's very difficult to report abuse in the employment and still stay in that employment, because if you think about it, half the colleagues may not believe you. They may blame you, they may side with the person you're accusing. And you have to see these people day in, day out, for hours at a time. You have to be able to work with them, you have to be able to get on with them and talk to them normally, and to be able to try and work in that kind of environment where people hate you, where nobody accepts you or nobody believes you. It can be awful, it can be soul destroying at times. And yet the people who are in charge, the people who should be looking out for you, the people who should be supporting you and helping you, making sure that that environment stays healthy for you, that that you are believed in what you are saying, that people aren't doubting you. Questions, comments like, oh, we're taking that you are doing this in good faith. Well, I don't think many people would want to report abuse in the workplace because just for the fun of it, because they're just really sad. They've got nothing better to do. Let's drum up some excitement. Let's go and report somebody just for the sake of it, because I don't really like his tie today, or the way he looks, or his hair today. His shirt's a bit off. I'll just go and report him. Yeah, let's cause some problems. Let's go and report them. No, I'm not saying it never, ever, ever happens. I'm saying it's very unlikely that somebody who's come forward and reported abuse is making up stories, is doing it for the fun of it, is doing it to cause problems, is doing it just because they don't like the look of somebody or the way that somebody talks, or that, if they like somebody and somebody rejected them, then they're going to go and make trouble for them. So this is possibly a message to anybody who is involved when somebody discloses abuse, and it can be abuse of any form. It could be child abuse, it could be domestic violence, narcissism, coercive control, anything really. If a victim comes forward and reports abuse to you, you need to listen, because there is a reason that this person is saying these things. People very rarely would just make up random stories. There may be some, but not very often. So please listen to them. Please accept what they're saying. Please respect them enough to treat them well. Suddenly changing and turning on them for no reason whatsoever, just because you're angry, you're upset, you're frustrated, you're worried about what's going to happen. You know that this will come back on you because you are in charge and you have allowed this to happen. It's just not acceptable, and it shouldn't be happening at all, and least of all in the workplace. And people need to know that, if they come forward with reports like this, that they're going to be supported by the people around them. They're not going to be blamed for it. They're not going to be shamed for it. They're not going to be told to just sit down and shut up. They're not going to have their lives turned upside down and be completely held against them, the fact that they reported abuse. No one wants to live in discomfort. Nobody wants everybody to hate them. Everybody just wants love. So just be kind, be a bit kinder, be a bit more considerate, and just look out for them if you can. Right, I'm going to sign out now. Take care, stay safe, and don't forget to subscribe.